Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We have on this episode some information about upcoming events. We have some updates of some different past things we've been sharing about on the episode, from sports to some legislation. There's been a lot going on across the state of California, at the state capitol, and all kinds of different issues. But with that, Greg, what do you have to drink today for Coffee, Culture, and the Capital?
Well, I'm not doing coffee today. I had enough coffee, so I have purified water from Grocery Outlet.
There you go.
See? So I'm healthy today.
So
what do you have?
You choose the good route. There's some of us that continue to have more coffee, even if we shouldn't. But I just have an Americano that I made at home.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go. But, all right, Greg, we have an event coming up at the state capitol next week. And this is not the first time we're doing something like this. I mean, there's some changes, some new things happening with this one. But what are we doing with the Change Movement in Sacramento next week?
The Changed Movement. What is that? Well, this is an organization. It's actually a group of people who came to the Capitol 7 years ago when there was a bill introduced that was going to affect their ministry. And actually, this ministry was actually birthed out of the bill that was introduced. And this bill was AB 2943. This was a bill that was going to say that any attempt, and I'm going to actually read from the text of the bill. It's AB 2943. This is back in 2018. And the bill was authored by former Assemblyman Evan Lowe out of the San Jose area, and it was to treat efforts to change behavior or gender expressions or to eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attractions or feelings towards individuals of the same sex as consumer fraud. So, in general, it was going to say, hey, if you're a church, if you're a counselor, if you're a ministry, if you're a youth pastor, and you help someone in your church change their sexual behavior away from same-sex behavior, or you help someone change their gender confusion and help them accept their bodies as God created them, any attempt to change behaviors or feelings or attractions, that was going to be considered criminal. Just as though you were selling someone something that was obviously fake and false. And so this particular bill, now there had to be money exchange. So it generally helped if you were selling books, if on that topic, if you were doing a youth camp, and part of the youth camp was urging kids to, obey God's rules about sexuality, which limits sex to committed, married, opposite-sex couples. That's the only folks who should be having sex according to Christianity. That's how God designed it. And if you are encouraging people to leave current practices and follow the Christian standard, and people paid to go to your youth camp, that was going to be considered consumer fraud. So this bill was going to affect a lot of Christians. And so we had and part of the effort was we had a bunch of folks come to the Capitol, and over 40 people who used to identify as LGBTQ. They were either former lesbians, people who identified as gay or bisexual or transsexual. They identified as the opposite sex, but then they came to Christ, and through counseling and discipleship and their interest in following their faith, they changed. And they came to the Capitol to tell their stories, because what the government was saying, this particular bill was going to say any effort to help those people, any effort to offer them encouragement to change, any counseling or support that many ministries and churches offer former LGBT folks, that was all going to be considered consumer fraud. So they came to the Capitol 7 years ago on June 12th, and they gave their testimonies. We had a press conference, and to give their position and their opposition to this bill. And I know we pulled up from the past a video that kind of highlights what happened 7 years ago. And I know that we're going to show you a clip just so you see what it's about.
Yeah.
And so let's watch this.
Thank you so much. My name is Ken Williams. I am from Redding, California. I never fit in with the boys or the girls my entire childhood. I was confused about my sexuality by the time I first had my first sexual desires. Those were only for men, and I only experienced same-sex attraction until I was 30. But I went on a journey of figuring out why I had those desires. Things happened to me. Things were done to me, and that's where those desires came from. I got to the bottom of them through books and through the counseling that I pursued. I came out of my suicidal state, and I discovered one day that I was sexually attracted to a girl across the way. That was new for me. I was shocked. I asked her out. We dated for a year. We've been married for 12 years. I have 4 children with her. Change doesn't happen for everyone. Some LGBTQ people choose to remain in that identity. Some do not find fulfillment and are suicidal over it. And every option should be extended to them. Q does mean questioning. If someone's questioning their sexuality, they have the right in California and in this nation to be able to get whatever kind of counseling or therapy or read whatever book they want to read. Let's not ban books in America. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Wanning. I came out in my early 20s as a lesbian, and 10 years later I went to seminary openly gay. I became part of the gay affirming church movement. You know, I lived and loved being a lesbian and being a part of the gay community. But my faith journey led me to question my sexuality as a lesbian. Ultimately, my same-sex desires, my desires for women faded, and I became attracted to the man that's now my husband. I no longer experience same-sex attraction. Today, I meet with many women who have been on that same journey. The APA concedes that sexuality for women is fluid. The senators, the state legislator needs to know and needs to remember that our sexuality is our own business. We do not need the state of California restricting human sexuality.
So that was from 2018, Greg, and you were there with Jonathan and CFC. I was not with CFC yet at that time, but that's from 2018, and now it is 2025, and we are going back to the state capitol with the change movement, but we have more than just a press conference and rally happening. We actually have a day filled of different talks that people can come learn about this issue. We're going to be talking about what you kind of just heard Elizabeth and Ken sharing. We're also going to be talking about the whole situation going on with the trans ideology. And so there will be a lot that we'll be talking about that day. I'm going to show you guys all a promo clip to get you guys excited to come next week. And then Greg, maybe you can go a little more in depth about what people can learn next week.
Well, we have big news. I'm Ken Williams. This is Elizabeth Wanning. We're the founders of Change Movement, and we have been invited by California Family Council to come back to the Sacramento Capitol and speak out again. Many of you will remember that when we first began, change was birthed really on the California Capitol steps in Sacramento. Here we are speaking out and letting the legislators of California know we exist. People can struggle with LGBTQ identity and leave it and live amazing lives. And we should all have the freedom to do that.
As you know, across the world, people who are trying to leave LGBT culture to follow their faith are finding more and more pressures. In fact, in some countries like Australia and Canada and some places in Europe, it's illegal to share the gospel with someone who identifies as LGBTQ in an invitation to leave that culture.
So we are going back again. We're putting on this awesome event
So come and learn all about the issue on the 11th, and then on the 12th, help us speak out to the legislators, hear all of our public testimonies from the Capitol steps again.
But then also to remind policymakers and legislators that First Amendment rights are important across the board for everybody, and to remember that LGBTQ is complex. People deserve choice in how they respond to their own sexual identity.
We don't have funding for this. If you feel led to help give financially and make this event happen, please give to us at the link provided, or just come. Come and learn and speak out with us so that you can really be equipped to change your world around you on this topic. God bless you.
So for those of you guys that are tuning in only via audio and maybe didn't see the screen, again, that is Change Movement /Speak Out, where you can register for the event and learn more for the event. But Greg, for those that are looking into coming or wanting to know what would really happen, what would they really learn if they came, can you give them a little maybe overview of what they can expect to learn next Wednesday and Thursday?
Right. Now, why this issue is still important is because in California, we still have a ban on offering any type of counseling, licensed counseling to minors. So you have a young teenager who's struggling with unwanted same-sex attraction or gender dysphoria, and he doesn't have any counseling options except counseling that affirms his affirms his feelings, his gender confused feelings. So if you're gender dysphoric and you're a boy who, is thinking he might be a girl, feeling he wants to be a girl, a counselor can only help him become a girl. He can't. The counselor can't help a child accept his natal sex anymore, right? Or if he has same-sex attraction, something he doesn't want. He's not allowed to explore not acting out on that, changing those feelings in any way. The Capitol up here considers that psychological torture to help someone follow their faith. Like they want to follow Jesus, they want to obey his commandments regarding their sexuality. They don't want to follow their natural inclinations. That there's no really help for that person here in California. And before the Supreme Court, there is a case, because Colorado has done the same thing, outlawed any counseling for minors, and there is a case challenging that before the Supreme Court. And so if the Supreme Court makes a decision in favor of freedom, counseling freedom, that's going to affect California as well. And so I love this particular conference. It's titled Speak Out, Freedom Can't Be Silenced. And you think, well, what's this got to do with freedom of speech? Well, this is about regulating, the government regulating the words that you hear in a counseling session. More or less, they're saying, hey, we are going to regulate what your counselor can tell you. With the words that you want to hear, we're going to make sure they don't say that in a private context. And that's just ridiculous. We don't want the government to be able to regulate speech in private conversations. And so that's when they talk about banning conversion therapy, which is a very confusing term. You talk about conversion therapy, you ask what it is. The legislature, at least publicly, will say, well, it's about forcing people into counseling they don't want. It's about, doing terrible things like electroshock therapy and other aversive methods. But it also includes preaching the gospel. And what is the gospel? Like, hey, we're all sinners in need of repentance and change. And then God calls us to not follow our natural inclinations, our sinful desires, but to follow him. We repent, we turn towards Christ, we trust in Christ's death for the forgiveness of our sins, and then we follow. That kind of message is conversion therapy. Conversion. That's what they're after. So as part of and anybody can go online and register for this conference. You can it's called California at Risk: The Truth About Gender Ideology. This is going to be on June 11th. There is going to be several folks with scientific backgrounds. I'll just read off some of the titles of some of the talks. The Sexual Revolution, Understanding Gender Ideology and Its Impacts. We have a talk about scientific integrity versus ideological capture, exposing the bias in gender research. There's going to be a panel talking about the state of research. When you hear people talk about, well, all these scientific overviews and studies done about changing your sexual desires, it's only been harmful. Well, we're going to expose to you how that is not true, how the research has been polluted. And so we have 3 different doctors explaining how that's been done. I mean, we're starting to, we already are acknowledging that on the transgender issue. Like, we got various countries backing off of transing and medicalizing, giving puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and doing top surgeries for minors who struggle with gender dysphoria. But we're not really dealing with, this is the same thing that's happening with kids who have same-sex attraction. And there's another section that's going to trauma and gender identity, uncovering the underlying issues. And this is really going to talk about how sexual abuse and sexual experiences at a young age can affect your same-sex attractions and gender confusion, and that trauma is behind a lot of these kids who are confused, and that's never talked about. So we're going to have some doctors talking about it. So it should be a great event. So this is on the afternoon of the 11th here in Sacramento. If you want details, go and register, and it'll show you what hotel we're having it at. And then on the Capitol steps at 9 o'clock, the West Steps, we are going to have an event. We're going to have a press conference that's going to include testimonies of change. And folks are going to line up and give their personal stories. And you really need to hear these personal stories for yourself. If you've never heard somebody explain how they once, lived for years as a lesbian or as a homosexual, and why they changed, and did their feelings really change? Did their behavior change? And what did it take? What was behind it all? So it's very fascinating. They have a great big book that we hand out called The Changed Book, which is full of their testimonies. We'll be handing those out as well. So it's going to be a great event. I hope lots of people come. We've announced it to the press already. I hope the press and the legislators pay attention to this. These are conversations that are practically never happening, especially with same-sex attraction. These conversations are not happening in the public arena, and we want to bring it out in the open. Christianity, the Christian faith, has the answers for these topics, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great event, so make sure to go register if you haven't. Try to get there. We'd love to see you guys in Sacramento. And with that, we also there's been a lot that we've been keeping you guys up in regards to boys and girls sports in the state of California, what has been happening with this trans ideology and CIF. And so I'm sure if you've listened to a podcast episode before, stayed up to date with any of our social media, you would know CIF is the California Interscholastic Federation. They're the governing body of high school sports. And they have been not just getting local news media or media across the state of California, but they've been getting national attention, as now President Trump, the DOE, and the DOJ have all directly called out what is happening with CIF and the invasion of boys and girls sports. And we know, just grassroots-wise, there's over a dozen boys and girls sports just in CIF right now. And, California, the state of California, CIF, no one actually has to track how many boys are in girls sports. There's no law enforcing them to do so. And so that's why we are putting together kind of a list of when we find out about these situations happening. But the major one that has been blowing up, Greg, is the boy competing in the girls' state track and field state championship. And we've watched that now go down this past month. Girls lose opportunities, girls losing the ability to make it to the next level, all because of this male athlete. And this is not a direct attack or a direct issue about this one singular male athlete. We're calling out the whole issue of CIF allowing this to happen, allowing male athletes in. And there is multiple male athletes that are, again, across the state. And so as we've been updating you guys about this, there's been some, again, Trump calling out. And so I just want to show you guys all, if you can see the screen, you can see President Donald Trump's Truth Social post from May 27th, right before the state championship where a boy competed. And he put out, California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's sports. This week, a transition male athlete at a major event won everything and is now qualified to compete in the state finals next weekend. As a male, he was a less than average competitor. As a female, this transition person is practically unbeatable. This is not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls. Please be hereby advised that large-scale federal funding will be held back, maybe permanently, if the executive order on the subject matter is not adhered to. The governor himself said it is unfair. I will speak to him today to find out which way he wants to go. In the meantime, I am ordering local authorities, if necessary, to not allow the transition person to compete in the state finals. This is a totally ridiculous situation, end quote. So President Trump was bringing attention to this, and there was a lot that happened at the state track meet in Clovis last week. We saw CIF start to change some of their rules last week, saying that if any girl lost the opportunity to make it into the next round due to the boy, that they would be allowed back in, that there would be one extra spot, which proves that CIF knows this is a problem, because if it wasn't a problem, you wouldn't have to make those rule changes. You wouldn't have to make those fixes, and these were completely inadequate changes and rule changes they made. And then we saw for Saturday, this past Saturday, for the state championship, if the boy came in first, the girl who came right after him would also receive first. And so it was saying that whatever place the boy got, a girl would also be allowed to get that place, which again, if this wasn't a problem, you wouldn't need to make those changes. So it was really sad to watch as girls had to share a podium with a male when they are, and I want you guys to think about this a second. This is this state track and field championship meet. The girls competing in this day are the top of the top girls across the state of California in these events. So they made it to something most athletes will never make it to. They made it to an event that's really extremely difficult to make it to. And then when they have the highlight of their athletic career, getting first, second, or third place, they now have to share and stand on a podium with a male. It was absolutely disturbing to watch that all go down, but that's what we saw happen this past weekend.
Right, and obviously, just seeing the track meet, and there was a plane flying overhead of the meet talking about boys shouldn't be in girls' sports. There were some protesters out front trying to alert people how unjust it was. And then you took a more quiet approach. You went inside and you just wanted to hand out some flyers, get people to sign a petition that we are running to. We're putting a petition together. You have already over 15,000, I believe, signatures on. We're going to be giving it to the CIF at their upcoming meeting on the 20th in Costa Mesa. And you were handing out flyers and little bracelets, right? But what happened? It sounded like, even though there's no rules against that you know of, that you've ever found printed, you went back and you sat with your mom on the grass waiting for the meet to start, and then you were approached by a CIF official and 2 police officers. What was that all about?
Yeah, well, again, like you said, I've been going to some of these different events this past month to support the girls, because of the girls and their families have been calling and asking for help. And so as a former CIF athlete, as someone who played sports for 17 years in the state of California, I wanted to make sure people knew about the injustice that was happening And yeah, my mom and I, we passed out a couple flyers, passed out a couple bracelets. My mom was more there just to be there with me. And as we're sitting in the shade and everything's kind of, we're just waiting for the meet to start cooling down. It's 105 degrees in Central California. All of a sudden, I was completely thrown off guard when a CIF official and 2 police officers approached me. They asked if I was the person handing out the flyers and the bracelets, and I was like, yes, that's me. I'm like, I have bracelets around my wrist right now. Like, yes, that's me. To which I was told I had to leave the event immediately, which I was completely thrown off guard from that. Like you said, Greg, there was no policies or rules in place stating you couldn't be handing things out. I asked the CIF official multiple times, please show me the policy, please show me the rules in place. She could not show me that, and she would not give it to me. And then she said she would send it to me later. I asked to see it now because I didn't want them to change things. I want to know what the current rules were, to which she then just said she would email it to me later. And I gave her my contact. I gave her my email and my cell phone number. This happened Saturday. It is Thursday. And guess who I've not heard from? I've not heard from her. I've not heard from her about what the policy or the rules are because I still haven't found the policy or rules online. And so I offered to go put all the items back in my car so I can just be there to support the girls. They said no. I offered to throw all the items away so I can be there to support the girls. They said no. There was no warning. There was no opportunity to stay. It was immediate removal. And so police escorted me out of the event simply for handing out these cute, actually I have one right here, cute little pink Save Girls Sports bracelets that say xxonly.org. So all of you guys that are tuning in live right now or watching later, if you have not signed the petition urging CIF to follow Title IX, to fix their policies and save girls sports, go to xxonly.org. You can do that. And like Greg said, we will be going to the CIF meeting on June 20th in Costa Mesa, and we will be there with female athletes that have faced this injustice, with parents of female athletes who have their daughters have faced this injustice, and a couple other people from up and down the state, attorneys, teachers, people that have been pushing back to call on CIF to do better. So save the date for that, June 20th. Join us there in Costa Mesa. Sign the petition. But I do want to show Greg the video of the CIF official actually removing me from the event. This video starts about 3 or 4 minutes already into our conversation. But just for some people that might think there's no way that happened or what's going on. So let's check out that clip.
There's a sign that says yeah, but there's no signs. And it says step out.
Okay. Okay. Can you show me the red record? Because I'm going to have to give my attorneys a call. So I just want to.
How about we email it to you? Because I don't have it right now. We're trying to run a meeting.
Yes, but
these are all the instructions right here.
I know.
And I know what you're saying, and
I just need to make sure it's already in writing right now, and it's not something that gets.
Well, we're making a meeting on this. You can't have stuff out. That's just
no, I know. But I just wish I knew that because I never would. I would have thrown away my stuff, put in my car.
Next is Central Coast champion, 23-7 3/4. Junior from Monte Vista and Cupertino, Ryan Shan. Next up for the North.
My contact info?
Please exit. We're asking you.
No, I know. I just want to make sure I have my stuff. Do you want me to give you a card, or do you want me to? Okay, yeah. And it was a current meet decision to not.
We never allow it if you're not a member.
Okay, even if it's free. Okay, thank you. And what was your name again?
Please exit. Thank you.
So I don't know if you could hear that well in the video, but it went from this is a rule and policy we have in place to this isn't something we have in place because it was a current meet decision to then I asked her later, this is a current meet decision. And then when she went back to this is something we've always done. So she couldn't keep it clear on what really the rules are. And at one point she said I was a distraction from the event. And like Greg said, there was people with megaphones and blowhorns screaming no boys and girls sports. I was simply walking around having one-on-one conversations to which I only talked to about 10 people. And I did so while no one was competing because I didn't want to distract anyone from watching their child compete that day. And so at the end of the day, it's clear I wasn't a distraction to the event or to what was happening because the girls there competing didn't even know what went down in regards to my situation. I was a distraction to what CIF is doing, and I was a distraction to what CIF is saying and allowing to happen, and that's what she didn't want. She didn't want them to be exposed for the reality that at the end of the day, they are not standing up and protecting girls. They're putting males, confused feelings and confused males before the protection and safety of girls. I'm absolutely disturbed and disgusted, honestly, when I watch women work towards the erasure of other girls. And that's what she did that day. And now I'll step off my little soapbox.
It's disappointing. The funny thing is that later I found pictures of her and there was a video of her actually escorting A.B. Hernandez, the guy who's on the girls' team, into the arena, walking with him around the arena. So obviously it was her task to escort him around and make sure there was as much as she could, make sure no one was saying anything that would disturb him. Open debate, discussions. They're hoping this all goes away if they can strong arm people into silence. But that's not going to happen. There's plenty of people who are committed to this. They're not going to let CIF officials silence us. And I know you have not been silent. I mean, the next day you were, the next few days you are in national media talking about the incident. Everybody was, it was quoted all over various big news outlets regarding what happened to you. So they're not going to be able to eliminate this discussion, especially when you got 80%, 70% of the populace who think it's wrong and unfair, including our liberal governor, that it's unfair, deeply unfair, to have boys in girls' sports. So this issue is not going to go away. And folks, we can't just sit around and say, well, this is just how it is. The law dictates. No, the law is a reflection of our legislators who are up here mandating and enforcing things. Ultimately, the authority of our nation is in the hands of the people, right? So if you see something wrong, silence is not the right response. That is not the right response that the Bible gives us when things are wrong. Christians speak up, they stand up, they make their voices heard, even if it causes conflict. And so we shouldn't be shocked that when you stand for the truth, people get offended. And Sophia, I know that was a frustrating incident for you, but you kept your cool, right? You didn't flip off the handle. And so good job. You gave everybody an example of what to follow when that same thing happens to us. And so that we all need to do that, right? We speak and we keep our cool, right? We don't. Let's keep our cool, everybody.
And just to know on that, I'm not a person that easily keeps my cool. So don't think, well, that was easy for her to do it. That's not my personality. So sometimes you do have to just work on doing that. But like Greg said, don't sit back. Don't say, well, there's nothing we can do now. I just want to share, I heard from a mom the other day, her son had at his school, the girls that went to school with him were going to have to compete against a male. And that didn't end up happening. But he talked to the girls and said, hey, why don't you guys take a knee? Why don't you stand out? Why, not compete? Why don't you say no to this? And what she said the girls' responses were, I'm not shocked because as a former female athlete, I get the being competitive and wanting to win and prove everyone wrong. But I'm heartbroken because the girls' response was, well, I'm just going to focus on doing my best and winning because this is just how it is nowadays. That's how current female athletes, some high school female athletes, are feeling about boys and girls sports. This is just what it is. It is. And that doesn't mean they're okay with it or happy with it, but they just know that's just how it is. And that breaks my heart. So anyways, go sign xxonly.org. Go sign that petition. Share it with all your friends, with all your family. Share it on your Facebook page. Share it on your social media. At xxonly.org, very soon there will be actual social media graphic posts you can download and post on your own. And you don't have to be in the state of California to sign it. So you can share it all around. And we're going to talk about one last final bill. But before we do, I want everyone watching to just see the video clip of the female athlete having to share a podium with a male because it really is sad. So if you're just listening in, you can head to our YouTube or Facebook or X account to actually watch the videos that we've been playing. But to know that girl's trained so hard to become the first in the state of California in her sport, and then has to share a podium with a male. And I do want to note, you did see all the girls clapping when they said his name. He actually placed on the podium on 3 different events. On some of them, you could tell some of the girls were hesitant to clap and what was going on. But a lot of the girls feel pressure to now just accept this, because that day, CIF officials were saying at the stadium, on the speakers of the stadium, that if there's anyone that goes against this, if there's anyone that discriminates against race, sex, or gender, that you will be removed from the event. They started saying that after I was already removed from the event. And that everyone needs to be supportive of what is happening today. This is what the adults in charge of the event were saying on the speakers to all the female athletes. So when those female athletes were on the podium, what else are they supposed to do? They don't know what to do. They're just, okay, let's cheer this boy on. And to know that these girls had to hear over the speakers by CIF during the event that they need to get on board with what's happening instead of the adults telling them they're there to protect them, it's heartbreaking. So go sign the petition. But with that, Greg, we have been talking a lot about a bill that you've actually testified on a couple times. We've seen this bill come back over the past couple years, and we've been pushing hard against it. And it has to do with magic mushrooms and drugs and what is going on here and what is the good news.
Well, the good news is that SB 751, the latest rendition of trying to legalize psychedelics, failed in the Senate Appropriations Committee. They held on to it. It didn't get out. And so this is a larger effort to legalize illegal drugs. Senator Wiener announced his plan to end the war on drugs several years ago, and he said we're starting with psychedelics, right? Well, his first several renditions of the bill that had magic mushrooms and all kinds of other psychedelics, hallucinogens they're called, which is LSD, magic mushrooms and the like, that cause people to hallucinate. And people have these incredible, wild and crazy and dangerous experiences, not knowing if they're dreaming or not, puts them in like a dreamlike state. And these drugs have been illegal for a while because they have a tendency to have very unpredictable results. People jumping off buildings, people trying to bring down airlines, which is a recent incident happened in Oregon on an Alaskan airline flight. Some guy, a pilot who was going home, took magic mushrooms, and 2 days later he was trying to get home on a plane, and he thought he was dreaming, and he was trying to wake up after taking these drugs, and he tried to crash the plane and tried to open the door, and he didn't come out of it till 5 days later. So these drugs are very unpredictable. But there's if you do a Google search, you will find all kinds of articles saying that there is hope that these drugs can be used to treat mental illness. And there's actually several FDA studies that are trying to see if there is some way that these drugs can be used to help people who are struggling with post-traumatic stress syndrome or anxiety or depression. There's a lot of interest with veterans groups who are struggling with suicide feelings, and they're looking for hope, and they're putting all their hope in this particular bill. And so this particular bill was simply a way they were going to study it. But the problem is, and I don't have a problem with studying it, right? We should find out, is there a way? But they wanted to study it outside the regular protocols that are used. The federal government oversees the testing of new drugs, but this bill was going to bypass all the federal regulations. It wasn't going to get the go through the legal proper channels through the FDA and the DEA, and do a overseen study on these drugs to see if they could be used in a medical way for veterans and first responders. Nope. This particular bill was going to go on its own. California was going to act like an independent country, pretend it wasn't violating federal law, and get the California university system to oversee a pilot program. And so this is hopefully the last effort they use in having California doing it on its own. If these drugs are really great, like some of you have emailed me and said, hey, you shouldn't be against this drug, it really offers hope for people, then go through the regular process. Psychedelics should not get special treatment, right? We don't want drugs to be legalized through lobbying your legislators, right? We want them to be legalized through scientific oversight so that they don't do more harm than they do good. And so this bill dying is a positive thing. And I don't know if Senator Wiener's given up. This particular bill was supported by his name was Senator Becker and a Republican, Brian Jones. And so hopefully these efforts have ended, at least for now, and they'll simply do the regular route and go to the FDA and try and get a study approved that way. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Perfect. And so there's still a lot happening at the state capitol. And so definitely visit californiafamily.org. Stay up to date with our bill watch list. You can also check out our action center about calling legislators and stay up to date with our blog to know what is going on. And if you have not already, sign up for our newsletter at californiafamily.org for a weekly email with tons of updates as such. And follow along on social media. And if you're tuning on to this podcast episode on a podcast platform, give us a 5-star rating, share with friends, and let people know where they can come learn about what is happening in California and how our biblical values are either being supported or under attack. We're going to be here to let you guys know. And with that, we will see you guys next time.